Okay, so we were doing inevitable accident. Um, Now, inevitable accident implies that an accident that has occurred could not be foreseen or avoided, that was inevitable, despite exercise of all reasonable care and caution. That means, as a prudent and a normal person, the person has exercised all care, all caution, but yet, it was inevitable that the harm has been caused and the injury has been caused. Now, this defense can be bifurcated, that means divided into two, into act of God, vis major. It's also called as force major sometimes, but there's, slight difference, because force major is a clause that is used in contracts, but we'll stick to this term here, vis major, or act of God, and human intervention. What is vis major? For example, it's like all these natural catastrophes like earthquakes, floods, drought, famine, so that's called as an act of God. So that is not in, human hands. So this is a defense where there was nobody responsible, but things just happened. Next, contrastingly against, vis major, there is something called as human intervention, but where human agency is involved and a damage is caused despite exercising prudent care, means he has done everything on his part, but still the person could not avoid the accident, or could not avoid the injury, or could not avoid the harm. For example, an accident that is caused due to bursting of vehicle tire, though evidently the tires are recorded as well maintained and checked before travel, and say because of that he hit another person and there was an accident. So who is to be blamed? It's not the driver. Are you understanding me? So this is inevitable. So inevitable accident that has been caused due to, human intervention or human agency, where they have exercised prudent care and caution, and it can be evidenced in some way or the other. So in such a circumstance, this would be a valid defense in the law of tort. Next is necessity. So the defense of necessity revolves around the principle that the welfare of the people is supreme. That means it was absolutely necessary to do something. So necessity also is a defense. Next is private defense. In case of private defense, the factor of apparent urgency, that means it is urgently necessary because of some imminent threat. There is some threat or some danger, because of which the person had to defend himself or herself. And because of the urgency and because of the threat, they feared something, and also the relevant authorities were not to their reach. So the question is, why didn't you call the police, or why didn't you call whoever, some relevant authority, depending upon the case? So when everything is out of your hand, when it's an urgent situation, and when there is a fear of being harmed, there is imminent threat and absolute urgency, and to save one's life or save oneself from any harm in whatever way. So a person might have engaged in a tort, and when he or she engages in the tort to protect oneself in an urgent situation, in case of imminent threat to life or body, and the probability and the possibility of reaching out to every relevant authority is like very oblique, or very, they are far reached. So then after, it's all these things are tested, that would absolve the person or the tortfeasor from the tort committed if he pleads private defense. Absolves a person means he can, plead this defense, saying that it was in the exercise of private defense, and the case would be dropped against him. Absolve means to, forgive, or to condone, or to dismiss a case. To absolve a person is to forgive a person and to let him go. Next is plaintiff as a wrongdoer. Plaintiff is the one who is now filing the case, and he is the aggrieved party. He's the one who says that I'm harmed. So he files a case against the defendant, saying the defendant is a tortfeasor and he has harmed me now. So the plaintiff as a wrongdoer. Now, the plaintiff himself is a wrongdoer. I'm not talking about contributory negligence, I'm talking about where he is in the wrong. He himself is wrong. Not that he has contributed to the harm, that's different. Contributory negligence, he is contributing means he has a part of it. He has performed some role in it. Now, the seventh factor I'm talking about is he alone is in the wrong. He is the cause. So plaintiff himself is a wrongdoer. So here, this defense is based upon the Latin maxim, extirpe causa non oritur actio, which means no action can be based on a disreputable cause. That means under this defense, damages cannot be recovered or compensation cannot be, sought for an act or omission where the plaintiff himself or herself is a wrongdoer. So the legal doctrine here thereby upholds the principle that the person will be unable to pursue a cause of action if such action arises as a result of his or her own illegal act or his or her own wrong, and thereby the courts can refuse the claim. So these are the 7 defenses in the in the law of tort. These are general defenses. So this is all about remedies as well as defenses. Now with that, we finish the law of torts, and we will now do a little bit of we have 10 minutes remaining, so we'll do a little bit of consumer laws, but it would be at a general level. Sorry. Now, about consumer protection and consumer laws. Now, again, this differs from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and from country to countries, even in a country, state to state. We all know that there are different consumer protection laws throughout the world. And of course, internationally speaking, everyone knows that a consumer has to be protected, consumers' rights have to be protected, and even the UNO has been vibrant enough, and they have certain, documents and declarations which, or guidelines rather, which talks about consumer protection. Now, who is a consumer? So in business, we call a person as a customer, but who is a consumer? A consumer is someone who purchases maybe goods or even services. Now, goods are different from services. You know that goods or services, it can be products or it can be a service. Service could be, hotel industry, that is hospitality. It's called hospitality industry. See, hotels or travel agencies. It's a service. Again, that comes under hospitality. Or you have, technical services, or you have, n number of services, different types of services, cleaning services, or, whatever services, engineering services, professional services. So different services, whether it's a goods or service, or even medical services. So when a person, tries to get or, purchase or contract services or purchase goods for a consideration, which is of course the price which may be entirely paid or maybe partly paid or partly promised to be paid. That there is the system of paying advance. Like for example, when you book a flat or you book for the construction of a new house, you pay the amount to the builder. You book a flat, you say that, okay, 10%, it'll be on the contract. So 10% I pay when you do this, another 20% when you do this, another 30% when you, so you become a consumer. I understand it's a construction services. That again is a service industry. So when it's goods or services for a consideration, that is when there is a price that is paid or partly paid or partly promised to be paid, a person is considered to be a consumer. So what are the different rights of a consumer? It's something very general and basic. I'm sure you know this. The rights of a consumer is the right to enjoy proper goods and services. They enjoy the right to be safe while using those goods and services, right to be heard in case there is any problem, right to be educated and right to be informed. That is, you need to know, like, what are the example, you're buying some food product, you want to see like what are the ingredients in that, whether those ingredients are palatable or not palatable, or good for you or not good for you, or is not allowed to be taken medically or not medically, whatever, it suits you or doesn't suit you. So you go through the ingredients and you check whether what are the ingredients in a food product, or even if it is any other product, so you, whatever it is, so you got the right to know. Even if you're buying some, you say some clothes, you want to know what is the material that is used, what is, if there is it's a mixture of materials, what two materials are mixed together. So the consumer has got the right to know what has gone into the product. So that's right to education, right to be informed, right not to be cheated, right to exercise a right to to be heard and represented in case there is something wrong. So these are normally general consumer rights. Apart from that, you've got the right not to be misled, that not to be misled, not to be misrepresented to. Like sometimes you see you have some shopkeepers, they try to in their advertising gimmicks, they try to talk something more about a product than that product will actually deliver. Like for example, these days you see different face creams that are beauty creams that are coming about, and it says that it does this to your skin, that to your skin, but actually it really doesn't work. So because that's the truth. Of course, if it is a healing product, that's something different. But if it is something that would actually, they would say that it would change the way a person looks, that means it is a folly, because that doesn't really happen, because all of us are created in a way that we are created, and the way the skin is, the way the skin is, because there are different medical factors into that, and those things cannot change. So this is again a problem in when it comes to advertising. So you got the right not to be misinformed, you got the right, but they do that, but you've got the right not to go for or fall for such kind of advertisements. So these are some of the rights. And again, you must have seen some boards in some of the shops which says that exchange is not allowed, or refund is not possible. So all these things actually is not appropriate as per consumer laws and as per consumer protection laws, but still people do that. But if you want, you got the right to really ask them, saying that no, why exchange is not allowed. Of course, but if there are certain garments, of course exchange is not allowed. But in general products, exchange is certainly allowed, in case you don't damage that good, and it's there is no question of hygiene or something that would harm the other person if it is used again. So in certain cases, exchange is certainly allowed, and refund is also possible. So these are some of the things which keep happening, and that's the reason you're studying consumer rights and consumer protection laws. Now, who is a consumer? Free Dictionary defines a consumer as one that consumes, especially one that acquires goods or services for direct use or ownership rather than for resale or use in production and manufacturing. Thereby, consumer is a person who purchases a product or avails a service for a consideration. Consideration may be in the form of money paid or money promised, partly paid or partly promised. I gave you the example of building or flats. And this also includes a beneficiary of such goods and services where such use is made with approval of such a person. For example, father buys a flat for the daughter, brother buys something for the sister. So the beneficiary of the product, beneficiary of that good. So online transactions, telemarketing, mail order, multi-level marketing also comes within the ambit or the purview of consumer laws. You understand, online transactions, telemarketing, mail order business, you have this Amazon and all this kind of stuff. and multi-level marketing, all these comes within the ambit of consumer laws. So a consumer has got the right to redress, that is resolve his or her concern when the goods purchased is defective or the services sought is deficient. So these are the two important terms that you should know. A consumer has got the right to redress when the goods are defective, because only goods can be defective and services are deficient. So you use the word deficient when it comes to services, you use the word defective when it comes to goods. So therefore, when the goods delivered are defective in nature, a consumer has got the right to seek redressal. And when the services are deficient, it's not appropriate, it's not up to the mark, then you got the right to get it redressed. For example, you have called someone to do up your kitchen, say your interior decorator, whoever, so you call the person to do up your kitchen. You've called someone to do up your kitchen and he does not deliver, the way it is required, because I feel like laughing because it has already happened to me. Well, but mine is a different case. So it doesn't happen. So that's a deficient deficient service. So you got the right to ask the person, this is not the thing that I asked you to do. So services may be deficient. So defect means, now talking about goods, defect means any fault, imperfection, or shortcoming in the quality, quantity, potency, purity. Say you are buying some precious metal, purity, jewelry, purity, or standard mandated to be maintained by or under any law, in force or under any contract, express or implied, or as is claimed by the seller of those goods. Next is deficiency. That means it is not performed well, it is imperfect, there is some shortcoming, there is inadequacy, and it is not as per what is mandated by the law that is in force. It is like not performed well, or it is not performed as is contracted between the parties in a contract. So this includes, again, technical services, professional services, financial services, hospitality, etc. Negligence, again, in delivering services or performance can also be brought under the ambit of consumer laws. That is negligence in delivering services. So that is not providing proper services which may cause harm to someone, also can be brought within the purview of consumer laws. Like, someone sold a product, someone sold some cosmetic. There are many people who sell cosmetics, and there are new companies which are coming up, and you find someone who says like it's such a good company and they want to increase their sales, and the box looks very beautiful, but the moment you put it, it has just rashed up your skin. And it's not just with you, it's with everybody. And when you go and test that, when you really send the cream for testing, which is possible, when you shell out some money and you test the cream and you find that there is some kind of materials that is used in that which is not appropriate for your skin. So that's one of the examples. So next is unfair trade practice. So trade practices that are considered illegal or have no weightage in the eyes of law cannot be imposed upon a consumer or a customer. Example, board displayed by the seller or vendor, and he says no exchange possible, or goods once sold will not be taken back. Next is false or misleading advertisements, or offering gifts and prizes just to attract customers, but has no intention of providing them. See, all these things keep happening. It's very common. Then unsafe products, beyond safety standards, like especially I would give an example of, children toys that are made by children. For example, you have Legoland toys. They say it's designed in the way that it will not harm children, and it's like for children of different ages, they have different type of toys, because if you give certain toys to toddlers, they'll put it in their mouth. So it depends. So Legoland comes up with the concept, and they assure the customers and the consumers, saying that no, the toys that we make are very safe for your children. It's according to the age, it has no sharp edges, and so on. This is an example for you. So it has to abide by or follow safety standards. Example, children products. Then hoarding or destroying goods. What is hoarding? To gather a lot of material or like, for example, grains. It happens in some parts of the world where people want to, when there is example, I wouldn't say a famine, but I would say that when there is some kind of, say heavy rains, it happens in India. There's some parts of the country experiences heavy rains and crops are destroyed. So some people, what they do, they try to gather all the, whatever, maybe it could be grains or it could be, anything, and they try to hoard it. Hoard it means gather it and then sell it at high prices. They raise the cost of it. So again, this is unfair trade practice. This should not be allowed. Then manipulation of prices or not issuing cash receipt after purchasing a product. So these are some of the examples of unfair trade practice. So what are the rights of a consumer? So consumer has got a lot of rights, and now this depends upon the laws from one jurisdiction to another, one country to another. Every country has got its own legislation, and it provides for redressal of consumers. And a consumer has got the right to file a complaint before the appropriate forum with that particular jurisdiction. Now, however, generally there are 7 rights of every consumer, normally internationally recognized rights, 7 recognized rights. And apart from that, there is additional right which is given by the UNO as per the UN guidelines, which is amended in 2015. That is the consumer's right to privacy. Now, what are the other consumer rights? These are simple. Rights to safety against hazardous products. You can here give the example of, children's toys, Legoland, where they assure you that they are safe products. They are meeting safety parameters. You can use that, example. Next is right to be informed about the price, ingredients, quantity, quality, purity, and so on. Right to choose. Nobody can tell you, I mean, when you go to a shop and there are different brands available, the shopkeeper, maybe he can persuade you, he can advise you, he can suggest, but he cannot go beyond and force you to, buy something that what he's saying. So you got the right to choose according to your choice. Next is right to be heard, right to be represented in case there's a problem. Post-purchase, that is after you purchase a product, or post-services, after the services are rendered to you. Then right of redressal, that has got the right to knock the doors of the court, that is the appropriate forum, consumer forum, which of appropriate jurisdiction, according to that particular laws of whichever land, whichever country it is. The right to consumer awareness, consumer education, that is what is happening, like you have so many press reports that are coming up. If you even check your phone, there are a number of products which are like in the form of, I wouldn't call it advertisements, but they are, kind of you're informed about new products that are coming in the market, which are approved products. So like consumer education. Apart from that, consumer awareness about the rights of the consumers. There are people who do not know their rights. There are people who just bear the brunt and say, no problem, well, I spent so much money, what to do? I'm at a loss. And they don't do anything about it. But the person has got the right to, first of all, at least, issue a notice. At least I would advise that issue a notice to the person saying that you better solve my problem. If not, I'll have to go to the court. I have to go and knock the doors of the appropriate forum. I mean, whichever country it is. So next is right to basic needs at affordable prices. This is something, which has been really banned upon for several years. Things, basic products or basic items should be available at affordable prices. And apart from that, in 2015, UNO, as per UN guidelines on consumer rights, has added the consumers' right to privacy. Now, what is a right to basic need? Just give me another 10 minutes. We'll wind up everything along with something that I have to say. So right to basic needs at affordable prices. Now, the UN guidelines on consumer protection define sustainable consumption as including meeting the needs of the present and future generations for goods and services in ways that are economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable. Now, this is something related to consumer protection, but normally, what is the definition of sustainability? That's the UNO's aim of sustainable development. The normal definition of sustainable development is always and always, meeting the needs of the present and future generation without compromising the needs of the future generation. This is the general definition of sustainable development. I'm repeating because it's not here. This is like a standard definition which like everyone should know and like it should be in your mind. What is sustainable development? Meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising on the needs of the future generation. So built upon this aspect, they try to link even the right to the right of the consumers or right to consumer protection into the sustainability factor, and they merged it and said that meeting the needs of the present and future generation for goods and services in ways that are economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable. That means, not to cause any harm even to the environment. So this was by United Nations in 1999, and also about the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. That's UDHR 1948. It's a document, Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. Article 25, it signifies that everyone has a right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services. So thereby, every person has a right to enjoy basic needs at affordable prices. And the governments should endeavor to provide such needs at affordable prices to the masses and subsidized prices to the poor. So at least the governments should provide basic needs like food, clean water at affordable prices, or at least subsidized prices. Now water, of course, it's clean water, maybe it's available in most countries, and some countries like here in UAE we purchase water, but in India you get it's free because you have wells. So it's different. So every country it's different. And so affordable prices. So water is available at affordable prices. That's the reason I'm talking about price on water. Also, if you're talking about water, of course, you get water bills in India, water bills. The government also checks the supply of water, which comes through a tap system, and then they put, there is a tariff, and then you pay the bill. But again, in some parts, of the world, as well as even in India, there are clean wells, wells. There are springs of water, which is very clean, and it is, hygienic enough, to be consumed. So it depends whether water is sold or when, built. It depends, or it is totally free. Next is consumer exploitation. Of course, it is encouraged that it should be punished. And moral policing, that is self-introspection, moral policing is encouraged, especially for the businesses. Like they should be taught about social responsibility towards the consumer. They should be encouraged, and it should be promoted at at business level, and to engage themselves in moral policing and render moral justice to their customers. That is, they should not sell adulterated products. What is adulterated products? Like, for example, I'm sure you know what is black pepper. It's black pepper. Pepper is pepper. It's a spice. Black pepper. Sometimes what they do is you have these papaya seeds. Papaya is a fruit. I know you know that. So papaya seeds, they just dry it up and they mix it up with peppercorns. And they say that it's pepper just to increase the weight. So that's adulterated product. So this is the way people do. So so adulteration of products is not allowed. I'm sorry. Next is complaint process. Now, complaint process, again, it differs or is different from country to country, one jurisdiction to another. By and large, however, consumer rights are generally the same, and when trespassed or transgressed, a consumer is entitled to get his or her right, or grievance rather, or complaint redressed and compensated. For example, like in Australia, you have Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, ACCC, you call it ACCC, and the laws, the consumer laws, which is like prevalent there, is the Australian consumer law. In India, of course, you have the, now here I have mentioned about 2019 because it is amended now at present, but originally it was the Consumer Protection Act 1986. And now it is called, I mean, it's amended a lot in 2019. So it's called the Consumer Protection Act 2019. That's why I put in brackets amended, and I did not mention the 1986 part of it. So at present, of course, it's the Consumer Protection Act. If you want, you can mention even the 1986 part of it. It's like, you know, things, that's all. So the Consumer Protection Act 2019. And under this, of course, they have separate consumer dispute redressal forums set up at each level, district level, state level, and at the apex, of course, we have the National Consumer District Redressal Forum. Now, again, that's a different story altogether. I'm just touching upon it because it's not necessary for you to go into the details there. Next is, of course, in UK, you have the Consumer Protection Forums, of course, and there is Office for Fair Trading. Before 2014, it was existing, but today, after 2014, we have the Competition and Markets Authority, which plays a role. And the legislation there, of course, or the law there, is Consumer Rights Act 2015, and there's also Unfair Trade Contracts Act, and so on. Sorry. Next is in the United States. Then again, there are different laws like Federal Food Law, Drug and Cosmetic Act, Fair Debt Collection Practices, Fair Credit Reporting Act, Truth in Lending Act, Fair Credit Billing Act, and the Gramlich-Bliley Act, and so on. And at the state level, there are many states in USA that have adopted the Uniform Deceptive Trade Practices Act, example in Nebraska, and you have Consumer Federation in California, etc. Now, talking about Kenya, the constitution, which is a main law, of course, I told you what is constitution when I was talking about jurisprudence. I said it's like the basic law of the land. So the constitution of Kenya has consumer rights enshrined in their constitution, which ensures the right to goods and services of reasonable quality, revealing product information, protection of health and safety in using product or services. And in Nigeria, we have, it's normally regulated by the rights of consumers, regulated by the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, that is FCCPC. And of course, again, the aim is to protect and enhance consumers' interest through information, education, and enforcement of rights by a law which is passed by the Act of the Parliament. Now, thereby, each jurisdiction has its own consumer protection laws. Each country has its own consumer protection laws. And as an area of law that regulates private law relationships between individual consumers on one hand and the businesses that sell those goods and services on the other. Now, the guidelines for consumer protection were adopted by the United Nations in 1985 with the latest revision in 2015. Now, which guidelines are accepted as international benchmark for good practice in consumer protection? So this is the example of the guidelines. United Nations guidelines is enough that you know this much, that they are actually a valuable set of principles for setting out the main characteristics of effective consumer protection legislation. They call for enforcement institutions and redressal systems and for assisting interested member states. Member states means parties who have, signed or have decided to be a part of this particular, UNGCP. So they are member states. They've decided to sign it, to be a signatory to it. So those nations are called as member states. So interested member states in formulating and enforcing domestic and regional laws, rules, and regulations that are suitable to their own economic and social environmental circumstances. Because why? Every country's economy and the social arena or environment is totally different. So as what suits them, as well as promoting international enforcement cooperation among member states and encouraging the sharing of experiences in consumer protection. So under these guidelines, now the UNO has stressed the need for consumers' rights to privacy as well. And that apart, the UNO has also propagated or promoted guidelines for online product safety. So this is all for consumer protection. So now I go to the Now, the important part of it, before we all disperse, important questions, I'll try to send it tonight because time is running. And on this chapter, or on this, the consumer protection part of it, normally you would, you need not expect a long answer. I mean, normally for this, there would be, this is important, so it would anyhow come for your exams, and you can expect a short note. And in the short note, what is required is, see, the important points that need to be there is, who is a consumer, and defect. See, in goods, there is a question of defective goods or defect, and deficient services, and what are the rights of consumers, and every country has got its own laws. So these are some of the things, and never miss about the UN guideline for consumer protection. So all these things are important that you mention it in the short note, and that's an important question for you. And how, what are the rights? Of course, though it's a short note, it's a general note, but this has to be there. Unfair trade practice also has to be there. Defect and deficiency are two important terms which has to be there. Why? Because, when there are goods which are defective, you got the right. When the services are deficient, you got the right. So that's the reason these 2 points have to be there. sorry. So this is all. And of course, the other important questions will be sent to you. The question paper pattern will be the same thing as of the law of torts. There will be 3 questions. Out of that, you'll have to answer 2, 10 marks each. And short notes, you'll have to answer 1, or just 5 marks each. So again, there's a choice there as well. But consumer protection is important. And again, in law of torts, everything is important, but of course remedies is important, because even as a student, or even as a normal person also, you need to know what are the remedies, or the solutions that are available. So remedies, defenses, these are all important questions. So that's all from my side, and if you have any questions, you can ask me now, or you can also send me an SMS. And it was wonderful teaching you all, and it was really a great pleasure for me. And you have been a very good class, quite cooperative and attentive, and an interesting lot. Thank you so much, and it was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah. Okay. Attendance. Oh, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I think Deek is not there, but now I know your names. Okay. Kadir Rahman. Okay, so Deek is not there. Qasim and Naima and Aisha. Fine. Okay, bye-bye. God bless you all. Do well for your exams. You can get in touch with me anytime. Bye-bye.